Kintaro is a 25-year-old college dropout who is determined to travel Japan and learn as much as possible. Kintarou Ooe was on his way to a job interview when he almost gets into a car accident with a beautiful blonde woman driving a yellow sports car. The woman, who turns out to be the CEO of a software company, offers Kintaro a large sum of money for any injuries or damage to his bike. He then goes to the job interview, even though he has no experience with computers, and meets the CEO, who is the same woman who almost hit him with her car. Despite his lack of qualifications, Kintaro manages to convince her to hire him as a janitor. While cleaning her office, Kintaro's toilet fetish got the best of him and Madame caught him in the act. Fearing the worst, Kintaro begged her not to fire him and instead give him a chance to prove himself. Madame agreed, tasking him with programming a project using C-Base, a language much more advanced than Kintaro's basic skills. Despite his best efforts, Kintaro failed to impress Madame and was fired from his janitorial position. However, he pleaded with Madame to give him another chance and promised to work for free. Madame relented, and Kintaro devoted himself to learning C-Base and any other task Madame gave him, including some less unpleasant ones. One night, Kintaro mistakenly unplugged the company's data server, erasing 3 months' worth of work. Madame was livid and kicked him out of the company for good. But to everyone's surprise, Kintaro returned a week later with a disk containing a program that he had written himself, incorporating all the knowledge he had gained from Madame and her team. He even included a charming screensaver of himself thanking them and saying goodbye. Realizing her mistake and misjudging Kintaro's abilities and character, Madame and her team frantically searched for him. They found out that Kintaro had given the money Madame had given him to the elderly couple who helped him fix his bike. Touched by Kintaro's selflessness and honesty, Madame raced off in her Ferrari, hoping to find him and offer him a proper job. In the next episode, Naoko Katsuda, Shengqian Naisuzi Katsuda Naoko, is a young woman whose father is a powerful local politician named Juzo Katsuda, and her mother is Nariko Katsuda. She is friends with Yuka Kanzaki, who has hired Kintarou Ooe to assist with his campaign for a third term as mayor. However, Naoko's relationship with her father has been strained due to his overprotective nature, which has led to her living most of her life in shadow and developing an unhealthy attachment to him. After being introduced to Kintarou Ooe, Naoko becomes intrigued by his unconventional ways and decides to toy with him by wearing revealing clothing and placing herself in vulnerable positions. She even goes as far as asking Kintaro to tutor her in math purely for her own amusement. Naoko steals Kintaro's notebook, hoping to find out what he may have written about her. However, Naoko's plan backfires when she discovers that Kintaro has already figured out her true intentions. This realization leaves her furious, and in a fit of rage, Naoko cuts up her own clothes with scissors and hands the weapon to Kintaro, screaming loudly to get the attention of everyone in her household, including her father and his men. Accusing Kintaro of climbing through her window and attacking her, she believed that Kintaro would try and make excuses. However, Kintaro kisses Naoko in front of her father and his men, boldly stating that he had fallen in love with her. Naoko's father orders his men to beat up Kintaro, which he willingly submits to, only for Naoko to finally realize the wrongdoings in her ways and intervene, but after Kintaro had taken a grave amount of beatings. As Naoko's father drives him out of town, Kintaro encounters Naoko by the highway. She returns his stolen notebook and begs for his forgiveness. She asks Kintaro to return to the town to steal her virginity if his wounds mend and he doesn't detest her before he leaves. Kintaro continues on his excursions as Naoko rushes back to town for school after giving him a final kiss on the cheek. After that, Kintaro is helping out at an udon restaurant after the owner was involved in a car accident. He is tasked with preparing the noodles, a job that proves to be much harder than he thought. His lack of experience causes him to make a mess, but he's determined to master the art of making udon. While working at the restaurant, Kintaro meets the owner's daughter, Noriko. She's a shy and reserved young woman who catches Kintaro's eye. He becomes smitten with her and tries to win her over, but she's not interested in him. Instead, she has her sights set on a well-heeled suitor who seems to be the perfect match for her. The suitor and thinks he's not sincere in his affection for her. He decides to investigate and learns that Hiroshi had relations with a girl named Yakuza and planned to use his engagement with Noriko to take over and sell the noodle restaurant. Kintaro intervenes, pleading that he not ruin the livelihood of Noriko and her family. But Hiroshi refuses and beats Kintaro. After that, during a horse race, Hiroshi attempts to take Noriko's virginity while they were at a horse race, but Kintarou Ooe protects Noriko from Hiroshi's advances, secretly rebuttoning and re-zipping her clothes, and even takes on one of Hiroshi's corkscrew kisses. In the following scene, Hiroshi invites Noriko to visit him on his ship one evening. However, Kintaro arrives before her and pleads with Hiroshi not to break Noriko's heart. Despite Hiroshi's continued refusal and expression of disgust towards Noriko, Kintarou remains determined to protect her. Unbeknownst to Hiroshi, Noriko is standing behind Kintarou the entire time, causing any hopes he had of marrying her to quickly fade away. Kogure, angry at Kintarou for thwarting his plans, attacks him. But Kintarou uses the Kempo martial art techniques he has learned to defeat the evil mastermind. Once the dust settles, Kintarou prepares to hit the road again. Before he departs, he has a final conversation with Noriko, wishing her well in her search for true love. Unaware that Noriko has prepared a bouquet for him, Kintarou expresses his gratitude for being able to assist her in making the right decision. In the episode, Kintarou Ooe is instantly drawn to Ayuko and nicknames her the Beast. He applies to be a swimming coach at her school, but Ayuko sets a challenge for him. If Kintarou can beat her in a swimming competition after a month of training, she'll accept him as a coach. However, if Ayuko wins, Kintarou will have to do her bidding for a year. Kintarou spends his time coaching the beginner classes, dealing with various issues and making progress at the student's pace. In contrast, Ayuko runs her school with strict demands and questionable methods such as forcefully submerging children's heads. Despite her harshness, she's surprised at Kintarou's progress and decides to help him train. During a practice swim, Kintarou inadvertently swims faster than Ayuko, getting his face caught between her legs. She punches him, knocking him out and leaving him half-naked outside the pool. Kintarou feels ashamed and decides to leave. After Kintarou's sudden departure, the staff incorporates his teaching methods into the curriculum, resulting in more children advancing to higher levels. Ayuko realizes the effectiveness of Kintarou's methods and decides to adopt them, recalling her father's teaching style. She regrets firing Kintarou and hopes he'll return to become an official coach. After Kintarou's sudden departure from the pool, days went by, but his influence on the children and staff remained. The beginner classes had progressed significantly as a result of the staff's adjustments to their teaching methods, using Kintarou's approach to instruction. For example, they now had the children try to retrieve a submerged ring with their hands and encourage them to submerge their heads on their own, rather than using Ayuko's harsh and intimidating tactics. One parent even thanked Ayuko for the progress their child had made, and the child asked for Coach Kintarou's whereabouts. Ayuko realized how effective Kintarou's teaching methods were, as well as how much fun the children were having while learning. It reminded her of the time she swam with her father, which inspired her to become an Olympic swimmer. She came to the conclusion that Kintarou's methods should be the cornerstone of her future swimming lessons, and she recanted her harsh training methods. However, since she had already fired and expelled Kintarou, Ayuko could only hope that he would return, where she would eagerly welcome him back as an official swimming coach. In the next episode, Kintarou Ooe encounters Reiko at a store parking lot adjacent to a winding mountain path, where he witnesses her sensually caressing the seat of her motorbike before speeding away. Intrigued, Kintarou pursues her with his trusty crescent moon and arrives at her luxurious home. Kintarou manages to secure a position as a servant at the wealthy Daitahu Teriyama's residence, where he finds it difficult to keep his composure around Reiko. His inappropriate behavior, including a run-in with his toilet fetish and Reiko catching him in the act, leads to his dismissal. However, Kintarou's investigation into Reiko's identity leads him to confirm his suspicions that she is the enigmatic motorbike woman he encountered before. Through careful analysis of saliva on a discarded can in a bowl Reiko had used, Kintarou discovers Reiko's affection for her prized possession, Bimo. Reiko admits that she finds most men uninteresting, particularly those who rely on their machines for strength rather than their own courage. As a result, she has developed a strong attachment to her motorbike. Kintarou's physical attraction to Reiko intensifies upon learning about her obsession, which she notices. To test Kintarou's worth and see if he is greater than her beloved motorbike, Reiko challenges him to a race with herself as the prize. In an effort to prove his worth, Kintarou accepts the challenge. In the 5th episode of Golden Boy, Reiko initially takes the lead in a race with her powerful motorbike. However, Kintarou refuses to give up and takes daring risks, such as riding down a concrete irrigation system and using a grappling rope to latch onto a speeding Porsche. Kintarou's determination pays off as he catches up to Reiko, pushing her to push herself even harder. As they approach a sharp right turn while racing downhill, Reiko realizes that Kintarou plans to jump the ravine ahead using an unfinished bridge. Impressed by Kintarou's bravery, Reiko decides to follow his lead and attempt the jump herself. However, she realizes at the last moment that she won't make it and screeches to a halt, fearing that Kintarou has fallen to his death. Reiko vicks off her motorbike to retrieve Kintarou's cap and admits that he was a great man, even greater than her own Bimo. She comes to terms with his apparent death, but to her amazement, Kintarou reappears from the edge of the forest and bikes off into the distance. Reiko realizes that she is fiercely attracted to Kintarou and chases after him, urging him to take her as his prize as the greatest man of all. In episode 6 of Golden Boy, Kintaro takes a job at an animation studio as a production administrator. His duties involve delivering animation cells and picking up supplies for his coworkers, including a cell painter named Chi whom he befriends. The studio is struggling to stay on schedule with its movie adaptation of the work of Tatsuya Egawa, and things take a turn for the worse when the director is injured in a car accident. The team falls into despair until Kintaro remembers a computer company that he worked for in the first episode that could help them out. With the computer company's assistance and the help of the other women Kintaro has worked with throughout the series, the team manages to get back on track. She starts to question her usefulness to the team, but Kintaro encourages her to keep going and reminds her that animation is an amazing medium that is fun to work in. She is inspired by Kintaro's words and gives the movie her all. Finally, the movie is ready for a test screening just in time for the deadline. To everyone's surprise, it meets Tatsuya Egawa's approval. She wants to thank Kintaro, but he has already moved on. She vows to follow him, but first, she has work to do. As she works on cleanup animation, she thanks Kintaro for helping her rediscover her love for animation. The episode ends with Chi chasing after Kintaro, with the other women close behind.